So I did a video analysing Kobbie Mainoo as a player a while ago. That video will be linked in the description and it did have good reviews. So I thought I'd do a follow up and go into more detail about what I actually think United should do with Mainoo. Now by the time this video comes out he will have only just turned 18, so he is incredibly raw in his development. And so if we take a long term look at this, you'd probably say that Mainoo could afford 2 or even 3 years of loan spells before then coming back to United age 21 and competing for a starting spot. But obviously you may think that Mainoo is a player like Saka, Martinelli, Foden or Garnacho, who is good enough to start fighting for a starting position almost immediately, being an improvement for United's squad as a whole. And I do think that Mainoo could stay at United, but it would be a massive amount of responsibility on his shoulders, as it would likely be as a backup to Casemiro. Now of course Ten Hag could bring in a backup for Casemiro, as well as a deeper line playmaker like Kovacic or De Jong, but then in order for Mainoo to realistically be an option, not only would McTominay and Fred both have to be sold, but Mainoo would probably also need some injuries ahead of him to Eriksen and Fernandes to even get into the team. And so if United do have the funds this summer, I'd be looking to bring in a backup for Casemiro alongside someone like Kovacic or De Jong. And then I think it would be best for Mainoo's development if he was to get a loan somewhere that can enable him to play at least 2,000 minutes in a season rather than 200 as a United squad player. But we first need to look at what Mainoo would actually need from a loan. I personally think he needs loans for the next 2, maybe even 3 seasons, but not all at the same level. See, currently I do not like United's loan strategy for young players. As well as Amad Diallo is going against the trend, I tend to think it's best to keep midfielders and wide attackers out of the Championship as often as possible, as the more direct style of play can lead to them chasing after loose balls rather than working on pulling into and finding space. And so I think they need to be in an environment where the system around them is a possession orientated one, and if there is one thing that the Championship is not, it's possession orientated. I think the season before he comes back to United, when he is 20 turning 21, he should be loaned out to a Ligue 1 side. The reason I specifically say Ligue 1 is because I think it's the most physical league other than the Premier League, whereas Serie A and La Liga are definitely a slower tempo, and the Bundesliga is actually a lot faster paced but not as physical in my opinion. And so if you want what I refer to as a pre-season loan, which is just a season long loan before coming back to the first team, which following my 3-year plan for Mainoo would be in 2026 when he's just turning 21 years old. But this loan needs to be in a league that translates well to the Premier League, and so a Ligue 1 or even an internal Premier League loan would be the best option in my opinion. But prior to that, I also think it's important that Mainoo learns how to play in a Cruyffian style of play, and so when he comes back to Manchester United with Ten Hag still likely as the manager, he can move into the United team with a greater ease, having played in a similar setup before. In the Championship, as I said, Mainoo is going to be chasing loose balls, running up and down vertically in order to keep up with the direct style of play, but in Holland, Spain, Portugal and Germany, Mainoo is likely going to be deployed as the deepest midfielder, playing as a single pivot in a midfield 3, who is going to be tasked with receiving the ball under pressure in the defensive third as his side looks to build out from the back, rather than going long from the keeper, which is the option that most Championship sides are going to go with. And so you'd hope that Mainoo is going to become a more cultured defensive midfielder by playing in one of these leagues, whereas if he stays in the Championship he may not develop the sort of press resistance and passing abilities that he would in mainland Europe. And that's why I think not this season, but a season after, 2024-2025, I would have Mainoo on loan at a mid to bottom end league side in the Bundesliga, Eredivisie, La Liga or Liga NOS. He'll be 19 going on 20, and so I think he'll have enough quality to nail down a starting position and get between 30 and 40 appearances for the whole season, before then the season after going on loan to a Ligue 1 club or a Premier League side. So we've planned out Mainoo's 2024 to 2026, but what about next season? Well, this may sound like a pretty out of the box idea, but I think despite it being unconventional it could work, and that's loaning Kobbie Mainoo out to an MLS side next season. But isn't the MLS a much lower quality league? Yeah, that's the point. If Mainoo stays at United next season, he'll be judged against Premier League quality, whereas if he's on loan at Portland Timbers, the New York Red Bulls, or Austin FC for example, he'd likely be a starter and be playing against what is actually Championship quality in my opinion, with the average quality in the MLS being around as high as the standard in the Championship in my opinion. However, unlike in the Championship, I think in America you'll have coaches who are much more aligned with the modern way of using defensive midfielders, certainly more than in the Championship. And so the style of play that Mainoo is going to be developing in the MLS is going to suit a transition to a Ten Hag style of play. If during 2024 or 2025, Mainoo begins to develop beyond what is expected and looks like he warrants a first team call up, then United can just cut the 3-year loan plan short a season or two to facilitate a move back to Manchester United where he can then compete for a starting spot.